Hey, mate, you all right?
Hey, mate, you okay?
Yeah, sorry about the delay there, mate.
All right, pal.
Anyway, mate, first of all, mate, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. You?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Appreciate you taking your time out of your evening to take part in the interview.
Not a problem, mate, not at all.
So, before we get into your time at Mansfield and your footballing career, who was your footballing idol growing up?
I used to love going to watch Birmingham City, and I'm still a Birmingham City fan now. And I used to love watching Joe Hart when he was there on loan. So that's big, like one of my biggest memories, going to watch Joe Hart, and then obviously when I got to train with him at Burnley, that was a bit surreal.
Yeah, you mentioned Burnley there. Obviously, you train alongside some top keepers that's played at international level as well as Premiership. Obviously, that must have been a massive thing for you in that stage of your career.
Yeah, it was massive for me in the development side, learning the aspects of what first team football is like, because it's very different to under 23 level, and I just tried to ask them as many questions as possible, really, about how they go about their business on the pitch and off the pitch, and try and learn from that, really.
Obviously playing in League Two and that, how would you compare the preparation to Premiership to League Two? Is it a totally different, regime in that, then, would you say?
It's all very similar. Obviously going through analysis after the game, before the game, lead to the fixture on the Saturday, it's all very similar. But the only thing that's a little bit different is the attention to detail.
Yeah.
As you go up to the, in that sort of league. And that's why clubs are in that league. But other than that, it's more or less exactly the same.
Yeah, like I say, it must have been such a big thing as well. Obviously, it's obviously hard to break through at that level as well. So, how would you describe your time overall at Burnley then?
Progressive, I'd say. Just to put it into one word, it was a time where I was at sixth form at the time when I got offered a contract. So, I thought I was going to university to study a degree. So I was playing football as a hobby. I never thought I'd have a career in it at that point. And then obviously getting the contract, and then that's when I learned all, what the preparation and your dieting and what really goes into being a footballer, as the overall package.
So it just kind of came out of nowhere, then getting the scouted by Burnley. Then it just took you by surprise, because by the sounds of it, he wasn't really expecting it.
No, it was. I was playing for England schoolboys at the time, so I think it was the final game in the group against Wales, and it was about a week maybe after that I got a call to the club that I was at the time, saying there's a Burnley scout coming to watch you today. Make sure you have a good game.
Yeah.
It's the kind of pressure that you thrive off, of course, but you're also nervous. You don't want to, make a mistake or give them a reason to think there's no point taking this lad on. We can find better elsewhere.
Yeah, that's it. You really just wanted to make a good impression, obviously, to get, just obviously scouted. Obviously you mentioned in there about playing the England schoolboys. Did you play with anyone that's done anything in the game, or anyone that will know?
I played with Max Waters, who went from Crawley to Cardiff. He was in that age group at the time. There's a lad at Cheltenham at the moment, Max Harris, the other goalkeeper that was there. And there was a couple of other lads that signed pro contracts, but I don't think they're still pros at the moment. I think they're playing semi-professional. But it was a good group. There was talented footballers there that probably any one of us could have got a professional deal at a club.
So, talking about your time at Mansfield, then how did the interest come about that Mansfield was interested in you?
It was towards the back end of my second season at Burnley. I found out that Burnley weren't renewing my contract, and my agent phoned me to say that Mansfield were interested. They wanted you to go on trial for I think it was a couple of days, a week, what have you, over the course of 2 weeks. So then came down. I trained at the time. There was training at the Loughborough University.
Yeah.
Towards the back end of that season, thought I did well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the training session that I did do, we didn't do a great deal. It was kind of like a preparation before a game, so you don't tend to do a lot. But thought I did well, and then they invited me back the following week to play in a friendly game against Port Vale. And from that game, I had interest from Port Vale and from Mansfield, and that's when they decided to sign for Mansfield. What
was your early impressions of Mansfield?
I was impressed by the structure. I was impressed by the owners. The manager at the time was David Flitcroft, so I was impressed by the way he was working. Obviously, the goalkeeper coach was Ian Pleasure, and the sessions that we'd done were very similar to the ones that I'd been doing at Burnley. So I felt like I was still getting the right training for me to progress. So that's probably one of the reasons why I did sign for the club. And I do my research as anybody would as to what club you could be going into. I saw the fan base. You were on. I think at the time the Mansfield Oldham game was on TV.
Yeah, that's right.
So I gave that a watch to see, what style of play and stuff like that. And it looked like something that I wanted to be a part of. And then obviously going into training with them, it was something that I thought, yeah, definitely this is what I want to be a part of.
So when you think about it, obviously you've been lucky enough to train alongside some top quality keepers, and are very experienced as well. Obviously you had it with Conrad Logan and Bobby Lesnick. That must be such a big thing for any young keeper, wanting to make a name for themselves, because you look at the level they've played at, and it must be massive for you as well in your development.
Yeah, definitely. I've heard of Conrad and Bobby before I came to Mansfield. I've watched them probably numerous times on TV in the games that they've been playing. But then getting the chance to actually sit down and speak with them, they were both really good guys that you could have a good chat to. And you just learn off them each day. The combined total, they probably played over 1,000 professional games. And I hadn't, at the start when I first joined, I hadn't played one. So it was also watching, again, similar to Burnley, watching what they do on the pitch as to why they've had such a good career. And taking that into my training session and thinking, well, if they can do it and they can have a good career, then if I apply myself correctly like they've done, then I'll have a good career as well.
Yeah, just like learning the techniques and just like watching what they do in training and just trying to basically, implement that into your game.
Yeah, definitely. I've had numerous conversations with both Conrad and Bobby. I used to sit next to Conrad in the changing room in my first season at Mansfield, and we just used to have your general conversations, and then you have your conversations about training and what do you think you could have done better here. And we were just bouncing off each other. All three of us at the time. So that was great for me for them to kind of welcome me as well and realise my potential. And I still keep a close contact with them now.
So that first season for you at Mansfield, obviously you didn't play as many games as you perhaps would have liked. Was it frustrating for you at times, or was you just thinking, look, my time's going to come? Was you just having to be patient?
To be honest, when I first went in, I kind of knew that I was going in as second choice, maybe third when Bobby came back.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, at the start, it wasn't frustrating because I expected it. It was a case of me keeping myself as fresh as I can, and if I'm called upon, I'm called upon. And I thought, when I was called upon in the checker trade, I thought I had a good game, for my debut. It was just unlucky how we lost on penalties, but that was, it was something that I enjoyed, and I'll never forget that. But yeah, like you say, towards maybe after Christmas, after I come back from my loan for a month, that was kind of where, we weren't on the best run again, like, where we were losing 3 or, back to back, and you kind of waiting for the manager to go, well, I'm going to put you in on Saturday, see how you fare. If you do well, brilliant. If you don't, then you're not the fit for this club, or you're not the fit for. So that's when it did get frustrating. But like you say, I just kept my head down and kept working hard so that I would get noticed, and stayed fresh for when I was called upon.
So obviously, the first football league club you signed for, obviously. How did you find League Two overall? Was you expecting it to be as physical as it was, or did it take you by surprise? What was your impressions of League Two football?
It was, it's a lot different from where I came from, but I'd played a lot of non-league football before that. I made over 50 appearances in non-league from the age of 16. So I kind of knew the physicality of that sort of, what non-league was like, and I didn't expect it to be any different in League Two.
Yeah.
What surprised me was, you still had teams that wanted to play out.
Yeah.
I didn't think that there was many teams that would adopt that style of play in League Two, and I think that's like where the game's changing. There's a lot of teams, not just in League Two, a lot of teams in League One and, the National League, that are trying to implement this style of play that personally I find better play in. But like you said, I didn't really expect to be a massive difference. I enjoyed it. I thrived off it, really.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned to it there. Like, I think every year, to be honest, I think League Two, to be honest with you, I don't know if you agree, but it seems to be more competitive every year because you get big teams coming down, you get teams coming up. For the likes of Sutton United and Harrogate last season, the first time they've come up, and so you don't really know what to expect from them. So it's a very competitive league, and I think it is a tough league to get out of League Two, to be fair.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It is a tough league to you get these teams like your Harrogate Towns, and next season you'll have Sutton United who will be, you won't know what they're gonna throw at you.
Yeah.
We played against Harrogate. It was kind of like, blimey, this is not used to. We haven't been used to. It was kind of non-league, really. Booming it long.
Yeah.
Playing off second balls, but that's what gets them results, and that's what works for them. And it's adapting to that in a short space of time. In minutes that you got to adapt to it, otherwise you're not going to get anything from the game. Unfortunately, the 2 games that we did play against them, we didn't get anything from. But we probably should have. We had chances, and I think that's where those sort of games you do have to take your chances. Other games there's teams that will play similar to yourselves, but you won't take the chances, and you don't feel as if you've missed those chances. If they don't convert them either. So it was very difficult to play against sort of teams like that where you don't know what you're going to come up against.
Yeah, that's the unpredictability of League Two, really, though. Like, obviously you'll come up against different kind of teams that will boot it long, play football. So you've got to adapt to their game, but at the same time, still play to your strengths and just, not focus too much on the other teams.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in contrast, you have Cheltenham, who play out from the back and will take risks, and that's what works for them.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to cover more. You might not cover more distance. You know, the outfield lads, they might not cover more distance because you just sat back and, you know, they're applying all the pressure and you're just looking for a counter opportunity or something, you know. Whereas if the ball's constantly being turned over your shoulder, you're always running, and it's quite different when you look at the stats as to how much the lads do run each game, you know, and it's just, like you say, adapting to what's going to get thrown at you.
Yeah. So obviously you played under quite a few managers at your time at Mansfield, starting I know you mentioned Dave Whitcroft, obviously was the one that, you know, got you on the trial, and then you played under John Dempster. You know, how would you describe John Dempster being managed under him?
It was good. It kind of had to feel like he was your friend as well at the same time, so you could really understand where we were coming from as players. And he had, you know, Demps had this style of wanting to play out and mixing it up, which for me I like that, you know, and I think a lot of the lads did, but I just don't think it clicked at times. But at other times it did click, you know, against Oldham where 6-1, you know, you look at that and then you look at the Cambridge result at home and we lose 4-0.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a real difference in opposition on the day. It was just how we played the game, and that's football. Games like that will happen, but it's just unfortunate when it does.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he did really well with the youth team before he got onto the first team. So, you know, obviously it didn't really work out as obviously well as what we all thought. You know, somebody that knew the club, former player. Do you think would you put it down to a lack of experience as well, or do you just say you know, what would you say? What would you say it was?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, for me, I thought he was a good manager. You know, it was just unfortunate how we didn't click quite right with the system that we were playing. I think you know, there was a lot of lads that were there the season before, you know, and getting that close to promotion on the final day against MK, and you know, in the playoffs, I think that kind of still had a bit of an effect as to, you know, where they were, and you know, it plays on your mind. You know, even like last season, you know, you still talk about it, and it's like, if this would have happened, if you know, and that kind of still plays on people's minds, you know, and I don't care what anybody says, it does, you know, it will. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that in that season we were just, you know, to be honest with you, it was like a hangover, wasn't it? You know, it was like we were nervous, you know, we was playing it safe a lot of the time, and it was just, from having such a good season before, you know, it was just a total contrast to the season afterwards. And I think confidence is another thing that plays a big part as well. Yeah,
definitely. You know, I know if I would have been there this season before and would have been playing, then my confidence probably would have been, you know, damaged as well, because it naturally will be when you get that close to promotion. And it's just one of those things where you don't want to let it affect your game, but you know, but whatever you do, it does.
Yeah.
Then people stop taking risks and going for the safe option, and you don't try and play the football that the manager wants, or you know that you can play. You kind of go into like a shadow of, well, I'm just going to do this because it's the safer option, and I don't want to make a mistake. Nobody's going to, you know, batter an eyelid if I don't do anything.
It's one of them, I think, and as well as that, it can go the other side where next season you can just kick on. But obviously we went the opposite side where we just kind of went downhill from there. So it can just go either way, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, the following season, at the start of last season, it was tough. With COVID and the lads, we didn't know when we were going to be back, whether we would be able to be back. Because at some points there was talks of just Premier League football carrying on for the year.
Yeah.
Didn't know whether you didn't know whether you were going to have a job.
Yeah.
It seems we were doing all the work over our so-called off season, not knowing really until June, late June, that we were going to actually start the season. But yeah, that was kind of a bleak moment for the club. As to per the results, it was kind of, as fans as well. It's tough watching your team. I can imagine going from promotion candidates to sitting second bottom in the matter of 12 months, 18 months, and it's like, well, what's gone wrong here?
Yeah.
But
it was just horrible. I mean, same with last season. Well, it's like it for every team, obviously. You're not in the ground, there's no atmosphere, and I mean, I'm sure you'll agree on this as well. But as players, that must really affect you. Not having fans to back you home or away, that does have a massive impact, because football is just, well, in my opinion, it's not the same without fans.
No, you're right. As when I made my debut against Newport, I was nervous before the game, but as soon as I came out and you see the fans and you get that extra push, and the atmosphere, and you got people cheering you on, and that keeps your confidence up. And even with away games, it's not the same, because you kind of have a bit of banter with the home fans, and they're giving, if we scored, then you'd give them.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You kind of turn around to a steward who hasn't got, he's just standing there. It's like, oh, all right. But yeah, it's definitely it was a strange season not having fans in the grounds.
Yeah. So obviously, we talked about earlier, John Dempster. Obviously, unfortunately got the sack. Obviously down to the results. And then Graham Coughlin come in. What did you make of him when he came in? What was it like being managed under him?
He came in with a stern approach, very regimental as to what he wanted, in terms of from the gym side of stuff to analysis side, what we eat, what times we eat. And it was good. Training was intense. All of a sudden, everybody's intensity levels rise, and it's amazing to see how many people's intensities, levels rise as soon as a new manager comes in the door.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the feel that you do get, because some players wouldn't have been in favour for another manager, and all of a sudden they find themselves in favour with a new one. But yeah, it was good, at the start, and then after we came back for the following season, I don't think the lads kind of bought into the style of play that we were playing.
Yeah.
I don't think it suited the players that we had. We had ball players who want it to the feet, and they don't want it up in the air, flying over the shoulders. It wasn't right for the players that we'd brought in at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you agree from a player's perspective, but from the fans, a lot of fans really just thought there was no plan B with him. Really, like he had a certain way of how he wanted to play, but I don't know, he just didn't feel as though he wanted to, change things around. I mean, I don't know if that's what it was like from a player's point of view, but it kind of felt as though there was no plan B.
No, you're right. It was kind of this system, or we tweaked the system, but the style of play wouldn't change with the system.
Yeah.
So it was, like you say, it was kind of stick with that and keep trying that, because at some point it will work. But then you've only got 90 minutes. So then if that doesn't work, then like you say, you have to have a plan B and try a different route. But in a lot of the games it didn't work. But towards the back end of the previous season, we just before the break, we just started to get things clicking.
Yeah.
A couple of good results, and we kind of thought, well, all right, we're getting into a bit of a rhythm, and then bang, football stops, and then all of a sudden it's shut down for 6 months, and you got to try and find your rhythm again. And I don't think it helps with how short pre-season and how quick we went into the first game against Preston.
Yeah.
And a lot of the lads probably didn't feel as match fit as what they would have if it was any normal season.
Yeah.
So that was, and playing against a team like Preston who have got championship players worth a couple of £1 million,
Yeah.
international players. It was hard to go into that game, and obviously the results then start taking effect on players.
Yeah.
We're getting beat 4-0, 3-1 against Man City.
Yeah.
We go to Leyton Orient, we're 2-0 up, and they get it back to 2-2, and that's when it starts hitting players' confidence and going over into the next game.
That start, like you say, that we had such a bad start to obviously that last season. I'm sure the dressing room was just horrible to be in. Especially with the way the results have been going. Describe what that was like. Just like every week. Was it just like, just the same kind of reaction? Just
yeah, it was. I wouldn't say it was a dark place, because it's not a dark place whenever you live in your dream job.
Yeah.
But it was a place where you felt nervous to go into training. You didn't enjoy training as much as what you probably would, if the results are going well, which is, that's what happens in football. But it was kind of like not dreading the next game, but it was like, well, let's go here and see if we can pick up a point, or let's try not to lose. Let's try and play for draws. But draws don't get you anything really. It's all right if you get a draw, it's a point, but you go a whole season drawing every game, then you're lucky to be safe. So it was kind of like, well, are we going to lose or are we going to draw this week? We never thought about, we're going to win this week, because when we did get a winning position, we ended up, either losing or being pegged back to a draw.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we alluded to it earlier. Obviously, confidence is a massive thing in football. Obviously, when your confidence is high, you're obviously getting the results, and obviously, when you're not winning, it just takes that one win, and then it can just get your season back on track, really. But it was like every week was just like Groundhog Day, and I just don't understand how we looked in certain games. We played well. It was just the defence. I just don't understand why. It was like I think game management was a big thing we just struggled to have, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, like we alluded to earlier, confidence. When you're constantly drawing and you're not picking up that win, it's just like hanging over you. Yeah. It's like a hangover where you don't want to get out of bed and you just want to take the easy route, but like you've got to try and fight through that, and otherwise, you're in serious trouble. Which I think that's when a lot of the lads came together. I mean, we probably should have beat Walsall at home. Probably should have beat Bolton, and after the Bolton game, even still, the confidence wasn't sky high, but it was starting to come back up, where we were thinking, well, we're playing well. The performances are gradually getting better. If we could just pick up that win, we'll be fine. We'll go win the next 4 or the next 3. And I think the Sunderland Cup win, that kind of picked us up and was like, we've just beat elite, a team that was in the Prem 3 years ago. Why can't we go and beat Barrow? Or or I don't know, Forest Green away. Why can't we go to these top teams in League Two? And Mansfield is a big club, and we're supposedly a big team in League Two. With the owners that Mansfield have got, the staff that Mansfield have got. you've got to kind of suck it up and go to places and make people fear you, really, and go and play in their backyard and upset them.
Yeah, that's it. Just make them, make your presence known. Yeah, definitely. So obviously with Graham, with the sacking, didn't obviously it wouldn't come much of a surprise to you guys. Then was you kind of expecting it really at the time, and of it after the Barrow game? How was it in the dressing room?
To be honest, after the Barrow game, it was silent in the dressing room for a good half an hour. No, nobody would say a word. Mm-hmm. It was kind of you kind of knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I think it was 14 games or something without a win.
Yeah.
From the start, and then in football these days, 14 games is a long time without a win for some, for a manager to get a sack. So, I think if it would have gone any longer, then it would have happened inevitably anyway. So when it did happen, I don't think anybody was surprised. Mm-hmm. All the fans weren't surprised when it did happen. And then it was just a case of coming in the next day and trying to right what we've done wrong in the last few games and start afresh. Put all that behind us and start from there.
Yeah, well, before Nigel Clough came in, obviously Richard Cooper took on temporary charge. And to be honest with you, even though we had 2 games, I think he did quite well, to be fair. I mean, obviously an undefeated run and played some really good football. How was it? How was that under Richard Cooper?
It's good. I've got a good relationship with Coops, from playing for the reserves the year before, since I came in. I've always had a good relationship with Coops and Mike Whitlow. So it's people that you already know at the club. You know how they work. Mm-hmm. And they just install the confidence straight back into us from day one. Because you are good players. You wouldn't be here if you weren't good players. Kind of things that as footballers you want to hear. And you do know deep down inside. Yeah. But until someone really puts that message across to you, then that's when it sinks in. Yeah, you are a good footballer. You wouldn't be here unless you weren't. And that's when I think everybody kind of came together and there was a bit more togetherness. Yeah. And that's gradually as the performances started to pick up. We went out and attacked teams from the off, whereas maybe previous weeks we wouldn't have done that. We probably would have sat back and seen how they play for a bit. Yeah. But working under Coops, it was brilliant. And like I said, I had a good relationship with him, so I knew how he wanted to play and knew how he wanted to work. Yeah, like you say earlier on, it's always good when people know what you're all capable of, and I'm sure that did all the confidence in the world for you, really, because it was a completely different team, essentially when he took temporary charge. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you had players that I didn't know that they were capable of producing some stuff, and it was kind of like the get-togetherness, like I said before, where we'd be bonding more in and around the training ground. You'd be speaking to more people that maybe you didn't speak to as much beforehand, whereas as a fan's perspective, you would think that everybody speaks to each other. Yeah. As one, but obviously at the training ground, there's 4 separate change rooms because of COVID, so you were essentially in a bubble. Yeah. Within a bubble. So that was kind of tough to. We couldn't obviously use the canteen at the time as there would be too many people in there. So that kind of had a part to play with why we probably didn't, with a lot of new faces coming through the door, why everybody didn't gel quite as quickly as what they would have done if, COVID didn't happen. Yeah. But for, that's, it really came together then. I mean, we didn't all start jumbling together and mixing. Yeah. But kind of, passing people, in the corridor and speaking to them and, going into the gym or onto the pitch where you could have a real conversation. I think that's where everybody kind of came together and said, look, we're going to, we could possibly get relegated here. No one wants to get relegated. But if we carry on like we are, then we're going to end up in that situation. Yeah.
And obviously we've got Nigel Clough appointed. Yeah, and that must have been a big shock to you all. You know, a manager of that caliber coming down to this level. You know, what was their reaction? What was the players' reaction to it? Did the intensifying training pretty much go up straight away? You know, what was it like when he first came in?
I mean, Gaffer at the time came before the Sunderland game into the changing room.
Yeah.
I think he said that he watched both the Walsall and the Bolton games and kind of said what he thought of us, really. You know, he thought we were a cracking footballing team when we get it right. You know, we just got to go out there and express ourselves, and go and play for the shirt and what it means to play for Mansfield Town. So naturally then after the Sunderland game, you know, the intensity, you know, goes straight up again. You know, and not just the intensity of the players, it's the intensity of the session, you know, and I think that's something that we weren't used to. It probably used to be like a longer session, but the intensity wasn't match pace, whereas when the gaffer came in, it was more a shorter period, a short training session, but the intensity was up there as a match. You played it as if you were playing a match, you know, even little small-sided games, you play it as if you're out there on a Saturday or a Tuesday night and you're fighting for your place at the end of the day. So it was a good reaction that we got from the lads, and you know the results started to then pick up naturally.
Yeah, I mean, talking about that 5-game winning run, that must have been amazing as a player. You know, just being able to do that, because I mean, it's been, I think it was since the 90s since we last did that. So that was something we hadn't done in over 30 odd years. Like, so that must have been amazing to be being a part of that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you kind of try and forget about it when you're going into the games, but as soon as you know you finish the game and you know you've won, it's like, come on, you know we can do this. You can go and win the next one. Why can't we? We've just won the last 4. We've just won the last. Let's go and make it back to back. Let's go and make it 3, 4, 5, and then even then, you know, we got hit with a lot of postponements, so that kind of killed the rhythm again.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard, you know, with the pitches at the training ground were waterlogged. A lot of the lads don't like training on the AstroTurf. It was, you know, the AstroTurf's tough on legs, and you don't want to be training on there all the time because people are going to start picking up injuries, daft little niggles. Where at that time, I think it was just before, I don't know if it was just before the January window or just after. You've got to kind of utilise the squads, you know, and manage the squad. So, but no, it was great to be a part of that 5-game winning run as a player. You know, it's something that you can always look back on and say, well, yeah, I played in that run, you know, and I kept this clean sheets and I've made this save for me personally. But no, it's definitely something that I didn't think would happen so quick.
It was kind of a strange season last season when you think about it. We had such a poor start, and then all of a sudden, you know, 5-game winning run, and we're not that far from the playoffs at one point. So it just showed you how much a couple of wins can really do for a team.
Yeah, definitely. I think League Two is like that. You know, you look at the Bolton game, you know, and I think that was to get our 6th win in a row or something, or maybe the game before against Walsall. And I think that was kind of, I think we were either level on points with Bolton at the time, and we were 6 points or something outside the playoffs. And, you know, and it just shows you that going on a good run, all of a sudden you're up there and you're candidates to get promoted, where, you know, you go on a bad run and all of a sudden you're down there at the bottom fighting for your life again. And it just shows that versatility in League Two, really.
What was it like in the dressing room? Was players really buying into what Nigel was doing? You know, was it did the player react to it well in training? Because we saw a lot of performances from players like Lapsley, who hadn't done anything previously under Graham, and a lot of other players really stepped the game up. It was on the start they were just new signings essentially for the same players, because we knew the quality was there, but just under a different style of play, and that's it. You know, it just shows you the full potential.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's kind of installing that confidence in that style of play, you know, and get that message across as to what they want from you in the game. And, you know, like you say, a lot of players that wouldn't have probably done as well before under Graham, and all of a sudden stepped up the game. And that from a player's perspective, you always see that, but from a fan's perspective, it's probably different, as you don't always see players all of a sudden picking up the form and playing to the true potential. And like you say, it wasn't probably just on the pitch that it helped us. It was kind of off the pitch as well, with how, for me, being very family orientated, it was kind of like looking after your family. If you need to be with your family at certain periods of time, then go be with them. It was kind of stuff like that made you want to play, makes you more motivated to go out there, and then perform.
Just to ask a couple of questions here, Aidan. What would you say was your best save at Mansfield, if you could choose one?
Probably the Forest Green.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's Forest Green, or arguably the one against Exeter. I mean, for me, it didn't get noticed as much, but I felt like that was as important as the period of time that happened in the game as the Forest Green one.
Yeah, the Forest Green one was just quality. I mean, it looked, just watching it live on the iFollow, it just looked as though it was going in to be thrown. Now you pulled that off, it was just a quality save. If that was in the Premiership, they'd be showing it like every week, you know what I mean? But because it's lower league football, they don't really talk about it as much. That's the only gripe thing about it.
Yeah, it was one of them where, at the time, you get that many situations when we'll probably do that in crossing and finishing drills in training, and you pull one off like that, and you think, why can I not just pull one off like that on a Saturday, or why can I not just pull one off on a Tuesday?
Yeah.
And for one, to actually come off and be in a game and be as important as what it was to get us a point. It was nice to have that feeling after the game, and a lot of lads were not congratulating, but kind of pleased for me. I felt like at that time, I think it was not long after the Bolton game, where I felt like I could have done better, but and I think the lads understood how much that save probably did mean to me and myself.
Well, that, and obviously for a keeper, just keeping a clean sheet in general must do you massive confidence, because I mean, it's another game we could have easily won, to be fair, because we did have the odd chances to really do something. So it just shows you, I mean, they're one of the best teams in the league, and it just shows you how we could compete with the top teams in the league. It was just, we were just missing that clinical finish in the end.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of games, where we'd have that many chances to put away, and we'd get done on the break, or with a scruffy goal that ends up in a 1-0 loss, like against Harrogate. It was kind of one of them where not either team really had many chances in the game, but we didn't put the chances away that we probably should have, and we end up conceding a sloppy goal. It was a good finish, but the way it came about, it was preventable, and I think a lot of the goals were very similar.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you describe working under Nigel Clough then, compared to the other managers that you played under?
Good. It was intense. I enjoyed it. It was kind of what I was used to previously at Burnley. And that's kind of where I felt like I thrived more off that type of training, rather than, the relaxed approach that I would have had previously. I really enjoyed it. I can't say there was a day where I didn't enjoy going into training. It was a day where you always wanted to get better. You always wanted to work. And ultimately, when you're playing, you look forward to the next game, and you want to get that clean sheet, and you want to perform well for the manager, and you want to repay his faith for playing you at the end of the day. So I was grateful for that opportunity, definitely.
Yeah, another good thing about Nigel, I noticed as well, he did like to stick with the same team. So even if you didn't have the best of games, it must have been a massive confidence to you as well as other players that he still stuck with you. So it showed you he had faith in you to keep you as the number one keeper essentially.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'll be the first to admit I made a few mistakes, but that's going to happen. I'm 21. It's probably my first real season that I consecutively play games. And I'd had conversations with the gaffer at the time, and we said, yeah, you're going to make mistakes, but that's all part of your learning curve. That's how I'm going to get better as a player. Essentially, it's not always pulling off the big saves, and because you can do that. Yeah. It's react from the mistakes that you do make and what you do the following game, or that game's gone, move on to the next, and to then be starting the next game, it was kind of like, yeah, he does believe in me, does trust me.
Yeah.
I just got to go out there and perform to what I can.
So obviously, the release came. Was you kind of expecting it, or was it a surprise for you when you found out that you got released?
It was a bit of a shock, really. I thought that I'd kind of done enough. I thought, given my age, first real season playing, I thought I'd played well in enough games. Got us the odd point or 3 points in some games, and kept us in it. Where I thought that I would have done enough to earn a new contract, but that's football. I understand. I understand where at the time where the gaffer was coming from, and you have to move on and prepare for your next challenge. So.
Yeah, it was a bit of a shock to us fans, to be fair, because obviously, we did feel as though you did enough to be here for another season. Obviously, like you say, you're still only 21. You're going to make mistakes. Obviously, young players do, but like you say, that's football. It happens. So how was the conversation that went with Nigel then? Did he just basically just explain to you, why he was doing that, and did he give you any advice, or how did that conversation go?
It was quite a good conversation. Sometimes you'll have conversations with managers, and when you're leaving a club, and it'll be you'll probably leave on bad terms. But I thought it went quite well for considering the outcome of what was happening. It was kind of like it's a learning curve, and when you go into your next club, this is these experiences will stand you in good for the future, and that's kind of just how the conversation went, really.
So is there any clubs that's looking at you at the minute? Do you know if where you're going to be playing next, or can't you really say anything?
I've had a couple of offers come through, but I can't reveal what club it is, obviously, until any one of the clubs. So it's just a case of finalising personal terms and that sort of thing.
Is it just a case of now just keeping yourself fit, really, and just wait for pre-season? We know whether your next play is essentially what you're doing now. You've got like a program that you're sticking to until the new season comes.
Yeah, it's I think a lot of the lads at Mansfield that were still going to be there next year have been given off-season programs, but I think the lads that weren't going to be there didn't get one. So it's I'm using the one that I used to use from in between seasons at Burnley, just to prepare myself mentally and physically for what I'm going to go into next. If I do go higher, then it might be better standard, or it might be quicker paced, and it's kind of just keeping myself as fresh as I possibly can without picking up a silly knock or a silly injury that's gonna hold signing anyway.
Yeah, that's it. So you just got to be ready for anything in football, because I'm sure players have probably told you this, like or experienced players like like Conrad and Bobby, that football is such a short career, really. So it's like you want to make the most out of it and try and obviously impress as much as what you can, because obviously if you play at a high level, you just got to learn from like everything, to release to essentially everything, really, under like different managers.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm sure like Conrad and your Bobbies have played under quite a lot of managers, and how you adapt again to going into a new club, the feel of the club, what the ethos of the club is, and what it means to play for the club, and it's about getting that greater understanding of where the manager sees you in the team, whether he sees you as second choice for me or third choice as a development player for the future, or coming in as a number one and you're going to play this many games in this season, or you're going to be challenging. And it's like you say, it's just preparing yourself for that and giving yourself the best shot. As you could go in, you could sign a second choice, but all of a sudden you have a pre-season and you find yourself as first. That's just how quick football can change. A lot of like the England footballers now, like you got your Jude Bellinghams, who all of a sudden played overnight, youngest player at the Euros, whereas 2 years ago he probably wouldn't have thought he would have played over 90 games until he was 25 or 23.
Yeah,
and that's just quick football can change. I didn't see myself playing nearly 30 games in League Two, but I did, and that's how quick things do change, and you have to adapt to it.
Well, that's it. It's just like in life, essentially. Like obviously with COVID, you've got to obviously prepare things differently and what have you. So how would you describe your time at Mansfield overall then, Aidan?
Personally, I'd say successful, because I went from playing under 23s football and not having that, not thinking that I was going to play either in League Two or League One, in a professional league for numerous years, to find myself within a couple of years having played a good amount of games that I have played. So for me, successful and progressive. I've learned a lot in the last 2 years from different styles of play, physicality, what it takes to play in that league, what type of players you're going to come up against. So yeah, I'd definitely say successful and progressive in that aspect.
What would your final message be to Mansfield fans? Because obviously we didn't get the chance to, thank you enough in person. Like same with Mal Benning, who obviously had a great tenure at the club. What would your message be to the Mansfield fans, Aidan, for the final say?
Just a massive thank you. Since I walked through the door, been very welcoming, been very positive towards me on the pitch, off the pitch, and that's something that I try to give back, because I used to be in that position and I always looked up to people like myself, and being a young lad that I am, it's something that a lot of fans, dream of meeting, as daft as it sounds. And yeah, it's just a thank you, really, and it's thank you and a goodbye in a way. My time there, and when I played, you always supported me, so definitely a big thank you.
Great, mate. Just last question. How do you rate England's chances at the Euros? Obviously, we've got off to a great start against the who was it played against? Croatia. Sorry, yeah. Great result. How do you rate us in the tournament, and how far do you think we can go under this young team?
I think we can go all the way. I can't see any reason for us not to. You look at the caliber of players that we've got, and they're all senior pros in a way. They've all played ridiculous amounts of games, and they've all got the experience and the know-how how to grind out results against really good teams. And I think looking on the progress side of things, we lost against Croatia in the semi-final 3 years ago now.
Yes.
So you can see the progress that we're making as a squad. We could have easily 3 years ago conceded an equaliser against Croatia, but we didn't, and we managed to grind out a result against a good team. And that's what football's about, grinding out results. I mean, maybe you don't play your best, but if that means you winning a tournament and grinding out 1-0 results all the way to the end, then you'll take that any day of the week.
Well, yeah, that's it. You look at the options we've got on the bench as well. The players that haven't really, obviously played yet, like your likes of Grealish, Bellingham, like I mentioned earlier. So it's So strength and depth's amazing. To be honest with you, with these players we've got, it's probably the best England squad we've had in quite a while. To be fair.
Yeah, it's quite scary looking at, when you looked at the players that started and you think, good team, very good team, and then you look on the bench and you think, you got a team on the bench that could probably
Yeah.
do a job,
Yeah.
and not every team in the Euros has got that. And I think to have every single player playing in a top 5 league in Europe, it just speaks of how we're progressing as a footballing nation, really. And like you say, I definitely think we've got a chance of going all the way and winning. And it is scary to look at the strength in depth that we have got.
Yeah, I hope so. Really do hope so. It'd be nice to finally bring it home. But yeah, thanks again, Aidan, for taking your time out, mate. Really do appreciate it. And wherever you do end up, wish you the best of luck. I really do.
Cheers, mate. Appreciate that.
Right, mate. Take care, mate.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers, mate.